Hello everyone, welcome back. And yeah, we are just going to continue from where we left off from the last episode. So we still have a couple of items to resolve on our list. And yeah, we have the search user list, the paginate user. So we have APIs for this already. So yeah, I wish to actually start from the backend this time around so that we can just resolve the pending issues we have on the backend before we can move fully to the front end to implement them. So one of the things we want to have now is the favorite users, then other users list based on the favorite users, then also resolve the pending message count. Right, so let's start from there and yeah, let's see what we can achieve in this episode. Alright, so here is the backend code and I just pulled this from the repo. I had to do a couple of adjustments just to meet up with the latest Python 0.9. Yeah, so the pillow we have currently installed kind of not work with the Python 0.1, so I had to adjust that. However, we can also just run this. So let's assume we are not making any changes to the code. We can just run this with Docker since the Python version specified here is 3.6, and as at the time we actually ran this, it worked well. So it's going to be assumed that it's going to still work fine. But when we need to make adjustments, when we need to edit the code, then we probably want to do some adjustments too. And the major one I did is changing the pillow version. So let me just show us what we have here. Alright, so pillow is not shown here now, although I installed it separately. But if I run Python manage.py, or rather no, not that, pip, then freeze, then this greater than sign, then requirements.txt. Then we get to see the new version I've installed. So initially it's capital letter P, now it's small letter P, then 8.1. So there is something too that this actually affected, and that's where we imported our pillow from. I think it's from here. So initially we imported from capital letter P, then we imported image. Now it's going to change to small letter P. So those are the changes we just have to make the version of Python we are using. So that's just by the way. I just felt I should let us know about that. So in case we have issues, we should try to track that down. But if we are just running the app and we are not really making any changes, we can just use Docker and it's going to run perfectly well. Alright, so back to our list, we want to work with the favorite users. So to do this, we just go back to the user control under our models. So we'll create another model and this will be favorite user. Alright, so we can come down here, class. And by the way, I'm using PyCharm community. I just felt I should use this since it's more intuitive than Visual Studio Code. So Visual Studio Code, the major reason why I was using it then is just to ensure I'm typing. I don't really have helping hands, so we literally know what we are typing, we are learning. But now I will assume that we have an idea of what we are doing already, and as a result, we can just use a better IDE. By the way, I think Python is better for handling Python-related activity than Visual Studio Code. Alright, so back in the business, so we are defining a favorite class. So favorite. So it's still inherited from models.model. And now we want to have the user. So models.model. Okay, it's going to be a foreign key. So we are referencing the custom user. The related name is user underscore favorites. Then, so as usual on delete is models cascade. So the next thing is going to be the favorite user. So I'll just call it favorites. So that will also be a user. So still foreign key, custom user related name. Then we have the user favored. Let me just use that favored. Alright. So the same thing on delete is going to be models.cascade. Alright, so the way this works is that it's not going to be like an exchange. So for instance, if I favorite a user, that doesn't automatically mean the user favorite me. So for instance, this user is a user and he favorites some other user. So that's why it's a foreign key. We can favorite more users. So as a result, the relationship is just a direct relationship. So this favorite becomes the favorite for this user, not vice versa. So again, another user that is favorite here can favorite other people. So that's just the point this is trying to make. Yeah, and also we can have the created art and updated art, and that's because, well, we just want to have the created art. We really don't need the updated art. So the way this will work is if you want to unfavorite someone, all you just have to do is to delete the record we have here, and that should resolve that. And I think that's all. So now let's have the def here. So ordering will be the created art. So let's have the ordering as well. Alright, so we just want the user relationship. So let's have this within a string. So user self dot user dot email, then self, okay, not that, self dot favorite dot email as well, or username. I think username is like our focus, so let's use username. Then this also becomes username. Alright, so that's the way we want to have it. So we can now see that the first user is likes the other user. So that's just the relationship. And that's all we need to do here. So the next now is to make our migrations. So let's do that. So let's CLS Python manage.py make migrations. Okay, then we migrate. Right, so we are done with that. So the next thing is to go down to the admin just to register this, or rather it's here. So we can just import the favorites, then we register it. So that's done as well. So finally, we can come down to our views to maybe create an entry point for that. So we are not using request here, so we can remove it. So let me pull this up. Okay, we need to create a serializer first, but that depends though. Alright, so we won't really need any serializer for the favorite. So because the way I want to work with this is, so we're going to have an endpoint to check if we favorite a particular user. So that's going to be a thing. Then we want to have an endpoint to either update or add a user to your favorite list. And that should be all. There shouldn't be any other relationship. So we are done with we really don't have anything to do with the serializer based on this. So we just move on to the views. And here we can just import the favorite model from the models, which we currently don't have. Okay, we have an entry. So let's import it from here. And I don't know why we are importing two models. So let's just combine it. So we can import JWT, also import custom user, then import the favorite, and this should be of no use. And that should be that. So next we want to create two endpoints. So one is to add a user to your favorite list. So the idea is when a user is in your favorite list, then it assumes for you to click that, then that means you want to remove that user. And if the user is not, then you want to add that user. So let's create a class for that. So class update favorite. So API view. So this is going to be a post request because we are sending the ID we are updating through a body. So it also requires a permission because we just use the token attached. We use the token user on this token attached as the user, as the main user here. So we define post requests. So self requests, then arguments, then the keyword arguments. Right, so that's all we need from here. So the next is to get the user. Let's just copy this. So that will be the user itself. And the first thing we want to do, okay, we need the we need the object. So we need the ID of the user we are trying to add to our favorite list. So let's quickly get that. So we can say data equals to helper. I think we have something like that already. Of course not. So I think we created an helper function at a particular time. So custom method. Okay, we don't have it here. Okay, for some reason we really don't have the helper method. I thought I actually created it. Alright, so that's by the way. So what we can do is we can create a serializer, just a verifier serializer for this. And let's quickly do that. So under our serializer, so it's not going to be a model serializer, it's just going to be a serializer. So let's say class favorite serializer. So the serializers.serializer. Then from here, all we need is just the favorite ID. Favorite ID equals to serializers.integer field. Alright, so that's what we want to have here. So favorite ID, and it's not going to be relating to any model. So now we can import the serializer as well. So let's go back here under serializer. So I'll put this within a tuple. Then favorite serializer. Alright, now we can come back to our implementation serializer class. That's not really important as per the view we are using, but we are just still going to put it anyway so that we can use it within the content later. So favorite serializer. Now here we can now have our serializer as self.serializer class into data, and data would be request.data, and we want to validate that. So serializer dot is valid. We raise an exception if it's not valid. Then the next thing is to now do whatever we want to do. So we want to check if the record already exists. So we can say, so let's just say favorite equals to favorite dot objects dot filter. So we want to filter if the user underscore ID is equivalent to user ID, then the favorite ID is equivalent to, let's see if that model name is correct. Okay, favorite ID, so that's correct. So those will be serializer dot validated data, then we get the favorite ID from that. Alright, so if this exists, then that means the user exists. So if favorite, then we just want to delete it. Or rather, that's JavaScript structure. So favorite, then favorite dot delete, then return a response. I'll just return successful, and that'll be all. Alright, so if the favorite user exists, then we remove it, and if not, we add it. So we can just say favorite dot objects dot create. So where user ID equals to user ID, then the favorite ID is same thing as what we have here. And that should be it. And as soon as this is done, we can also return successful. Alright, so that's all we need to do here, and we should be okay. So the next thing is to check if the user is favorite. So if there is a favorite, so we can use that to just update our star image on the front end. Right, so let's create a class check is favorite. So API view as well. So also still needs a permission class. So this one is going to be a get, and what we are verifying will be an extension of the URL. So we can say def get. So we have the self.request, then request, then the arguments, even though we are not using it, but we are using the quads in this case. So quads. Alright, so we want to check. So we want to get the favorite ID from the quad. So what we can do is we can say favorite ID equals to quads into, so quads into favorite ID. So that's what we're going to use on the URL, or none. Okay. So that's all we need to do for getting the favorite ID. Then we can now check. So let's just check with this. So let's get the user ID as well. Okay. So again, let's get the favorite. So this time this is going to be favorite ID. Alright, so that's for that. So now we can say if favorite, then return response as true. Okay, that's capital letter. Else return false, response false. Alright, so that's all we need to do as per this one, and we should be okay. So next thing, let's register the URL. Okay, again, let's make this a tuple so that we can import some more. Alright, so we want to import the favorite view, okay, update favorite rather. So let's actually add a view to the name so that it's going to be auditable. So update favorite view, then check is favorite view. Right, so now this becomes view, then check is favorite view. So for this, we need to register the URL directly. So this one will be update dash favorite, and this will be update favorite view. Then this one will be check dash favorite. Then we need the ID. So this is going to be an integer. Then the name. So favorite underscore ID. And that's all. That's all we need to do here. Alright, so we've registered the URL, and I think this should be okay. Okay, so this should now change to check his favorite as view. Alright, so this should be okay. So the next thing we want to resolve is the ordering. So we want to order the user based on the favorite user. So the favorite user should come in first. Alright, so let's come back to our user lists. So still on the models. So custom user. So I think we are using the user profile to actually do this. Right. So if we are using the user profile, then it's going to be like a multiple layer. So we are going to check through multiple things. So we can do that. That works. Or we can decide to change it to user profile directly. So we'll come back to the view here. user profile view. So by default, this is currently all. So we can, okay, so we have a get query set here. So since we have a get query set, we can just add a ordering at that point. So let's quickly do that. So based on what we have here, the structure is wrong. The same thing. So those are the picks that let me call it tips, not tips rather. Text, yeah, text is the word I'm looking for. That comes with using PyCharm. As you can see, it's telling you that you've gone beyond the bound for valid Python code, and with that, it's creating a scribble line. Alright, so let's add the order. So we can now have it as order by, okay, distinct then order by. However, it looks like the particular version of PyCharm I'm using doesn't really correlate well with Django. As a result, it's not giving me the ideas I need. However, it still works actually. So let's do the continuity. So order by. So let's go back to the models. So user profile, then. So the relationship here is the user. Then under user, we want to navigate to the user favored. So that's what we want to order by. So user favored. So let's do that. So this becomes user dash dash user favored, then dash ID. I think that should be it, hopefully. So we should probably write a test for this so that we can have an idea of how it works. But I feel that will take our time. So let's just do the what I'll call it, the idea thing. So we assume it's going to work, and if it doesn't, then we come back to fix. So we are ordering by the user, then the user favored, then the ID. The same thing for the other output here. Okay, so let's also bring this down so that we don't have the issue we have here. Okay, that doesn't have anything. Okay, let's have it like that. Same thing here. Alright, so I think this should work. I actually think this should work. So the next one is the resolving pending message counts. Okay, so let's quickly do that. So I think that's solved on our serializer. Alright, so this is what we have here. So the message counts. Okay, so on our message, so filter message sender ID here. So we are able to get the logged in user from here actually. So the sender ID, the receiver ID, or the, alright, so I think this or is where the issue is coming from. So this should only be a single option. Yeah, we are counting the message from where we are the receiver. Okay. And also we have to filter that it's red, it's not red. Okay. So this, we don't need the Q filter here again. So where the sender is the object.user, so this one, and the receiver is the user ID. Okay, then also when it's red equals to false, so when we've not read it. Alright, so I think that should resolve that as well. Alright, so I think we can actually call it an episode here. So literally we came back to our backend to resolve some couple of things, and we can call it an episode here. So I actually think I might dedicate a special episode for social authentication. It's not really going to go with the regular flow we have currently. So that would be like a special case later on. But for now, I think we've been able to resolve other backend related issues with our current lists. So in the next episode, we'll just work on the front end, and hopefully everything is okay. We don't need to come back to the back end, and we'll be done with our chapter. Alright guys, thanks for listening. See you in the next episode, and bye.